Folks, let me start this video by simply saying that God never gets it wrong. He never does. And when he uses prophets throughout the ages to share what will be going on in the future, you can know that what he says is going to be true and accurate every single part of what is actually being said. Case in point, we know what's going to happen with Israel and Russia and many of the nations surrounding Israel per Ezekiel chapter 38. We know that per Ezekiel chapter 38, several conditions will exist in Israel. Number one, Israel will be in a position where they will have had a good, solid relationship with Russia, and when they get attacked, they are going to be surprised because of that relationship. We know that. We also know, as part of what I'm talking about, the fact that there are going to be very secured cities in Israel. They'll all be experiencing lots of security, unwalled cities. We know that there's going to be this sort of peace that no one has ever seen in the region. And it's very interesting because we've also always known that when Russia attacks Israel with that conglomerate of nations, Israel's going to be shocked by it, especially considering the fact that Russia will be a massive part of the peace that Israel is actually experiencing. Now, what's even more interesting is the fact that when it does happen, we know that Russia will do it because they want the natural resources that Israel has. At least I'm assuming we're talking about natural resources here. But what I am saying is I'm saying it's not going to be the best of situations when Israel is attacked. And of course, we know per Ezekiel 39 that God will be the one that will defend them because there won't be anybody else that's going to defend them. Now, that brings us to a very important piece of news that just got reported in the Jerusalem Post, and that is a meeting that has taken place with Prime Minister Bennett and, of course, Putin. And what's very, very interesting between President Putin and, of course, Prime Minister Bennett is the fact that they have come to some very interesting conclusions about their meeting, and it's got Ezekiel 38 written all over it. So let's talk about what the Jerusalem Post is actually saying regarding some of these meetings, because I think that it's important to see what these guys actually said, right? So this is Bennett who's talking about their meeting, and he says, Israel and Russia have reached good, stable agreements. Right? And he said this right before. As a matter of fact, it's very interesting. Their time together took so much more than what they thought it would that, of course, Bennett, who is very strict about observing the Shabbat, actually stayed in Israel overnight, which is an almost complete no-no to do, but he did because he wanted to honor the Shabbat and ended up flying back into Israel Saturday night. So very, very interesting. And what he says is actually remarkable about Putin. This is what Bennett actually said. He said that he found Putin to actually have an attentive ear for Israel's security needs. That's a quote, an attentive ear for Israel's security needs. Of course, we know that that's going to be the case until he basically attacks Israel. And then notice what the article in the Jerusalem Post goes on to say. It says that leaders, quote, talked about the situation in Syria, of course, since the Russians, our neighbors in the north, the Russians are our neighbors to the north to some extent. And they went on to talk about how they spoke about the Russian army's presence in Syria to assist Israel with its enemies, with the proxies of Iran through Hezbollah. And notice what Prime Minister Bennett actually said. He said it's important to manage the delicate and complex situation smoothly and without a hitch. And then they both agreed, according to this article, that their meeting would continue the deconfliction mechanism between their air forces in Syria. Housing and construction minister is the one that actually said that. He was the one that was translating for them. And I think that that's even more interesting because Putin is basically going to put Israel in a position where their guards are not going to be up with their air force. Russia is not going to be in the same position either, but they will be the ones that will be primed and ready to attack. This is interesting because according to the Prime Minister of Israel, he went on to say that they discussed Iran's nuclear program, whose advanced situation raises everybody's concern. But the part of this meeting, the commentary regarding this meeting, is so unbelievable to me. I think what's even more critical is what Bennett says concerning this meeting and in general. He says Israel foreign relations are in full swing. this government in the world, and we are, of course, strengthening the existing and good relations with many countries. It's always heartening to see how much our country is valued and how much we have to contribute to the world. And of course, we know that the whole center of the world will be in Israel as the final Antichrist rules it. And then we know what happens when the Great Tribulation commences. Folks, we are seeing evidence that this is all getting ready to happen. God never gets it wrong. Don't forget it, you guys. God never gets it wrong. God bless you.